Hi, I'm Phoenix, and today I'll be giving you an introduction to my game, Carrot Slime 2, and my process of making the boss battle that was made as the final update for the game. But first, let me tell you about how I got to this point and why I'm making this game in the first place. About 7 months ago, in January, I challenged myself to make a game in just a few hours. I was, and still am, pretty new to game development in general, and for the most part, I had no idea where to even start. Like, what ideas should I come up with? How would I execute on those ideas? And were those ideas even worth trying to produce in the small amount of time that I had? Eventually, I came up with the most simple, unoriginal, and easy thing to develop that I thought would work. A platformer where you would try to reach an objective whilst picking up collectibles on your way that increased your score. This game would be called Carrot Slime. I knew this game wouldn't be polished at all, but I didn't really care. As long as I had a working game, I'd be happy. I had recently seen a video by this other game dev you might know called Vimlark, who mentioned that he was reworking his first game to see how much he had learned and improved since its release. Well, even if I didn't know it at the time, Carrot Slime would become exactly that. After a few months of messing around in GameMaker Studio 2 with projects that got increasingly better, I decided that it was time I revisited Carrot Slime to see how I can improve and polish the game after I'd learned a few things. Due to my lack of creativity and laziness, I named the game Carrot Slime 2. I'm not sure why I kept them under the same name because I feel like Carrot Slime 2 deserves a better and more creative name than just the previous version but with a 2 on the end. But that's what I called it at the time and it kind of just stuck. A few months passed of working on the game and we reached June 29th, where it was finally at a state where I felt happy to release it on itch.io. It got some attention, definitely more than my previous games I had made, which were struggling to reach even 5 downloads. Eventually, the game was put up onto speedrun.com, where people would see how fast they can do either the whole game or individual levels. This was a huge confidence booster, as the people that did play it seemed to really like it, so I continued to push out updates on the game. Following the release of version 1.0, there were still some things to fix, such as minor bugs and saving the best times for each level, as well as some other things such as implementing a better level selection system. It was then that I realized that there wasn't enough variety in the game, and so I added 2 new abilities, the Nullify ability, which would cancel all other active abilities, and the Anti-Gravity ability, which, as the name suggests, flips gravity the other way around. The combination of these 2 new abilities would add much more variety and vibrance to the game and would allow me to explore different ways that the player could get past obstacles. This update would become Carrot Slime 2 version 2.0. 2.0 actually did better than I expected and has led me to where I am now, where I can release the final update of the game. I wanted to add a proper ending to the game, and after a lot of time spent thinking, I finally decided that I would add a boss battle, or rather, a boss race. I kept thinking back to the beginning of Carrot Slime 2 where you encountered this random rabbit that teleported out of thin air as a kind of tutorial guide, and I wanted some way to implement him again, as to go full circle. But this time, instead of taking his advice, you'd be racing him yourself. The way I ended up actually implementing this finale would be as follows. I would make a new level that incorporated all of the skills that had been used before in the game and add a small cutscene at the beginning of the level which would initialize the race. In order to actually race the boss using his established way of getting around, which was teleporting, I would need to create a separate object, which I called Boss Marker, that would indicate to the boss where he would teleport to next. In GameMaker, each instance of an object has a number based on how many instances of that object have been placed in the room, and I could use a specific instance's number to find its X and Y values. For example, the first boss marker that I placed would be marker 0, and then marker 1, and so on. So if I had a way of accessing that number within the boss, I could then teleport the boss to those coordinates. So, what I did was I had a variable that would start as -1 that would increase by 1 every time the boss moved, and I would use that variable to find what marker the boss should go to next. I must admit, due to my lack of intelligence, this took a lot longer than I thought, mainly because I'm just stupid. But after I'd finally sorted out the system, it was time to actually create the boss level, and here's a short time lapse of me doing just that. I'd finally completed the boss level. Now it was just a matter of getting my fastest possible time against him, adding cutscenes for when he either wins or loses, and then adding an ending screen. I raced the rabbit for quite a while trying to get the fastest time possible, and I eventually landed on a fastest time of 50 seconds. Now, as there were about 100 boss markers, this would mean that he would have to pause for 0.5 seconds each time he teleported. Of course, I didn't want him to teleport instantly, as it would just become unfair and boring. Now it was time for something I'd been putting off, mainly because working with tile sets and art in general has always been a struggle for me, and I had never really adopted auto tiling in GameMaker. Maybe some other time. I needed to polish the boss room using a tile set I'd found on itch, called Cave Platformer Tile Set by Rotting Pixels. Here's a quick time lapse of me adding a bit of polish to the level. The boss race was so close to being finished, so all I needed to do now was add 2 cutscenes for when he either wins or loses, and then finally add an ending screen to say thank you to everyone who played the game. Overall, I'm really happy with how the development of the game went. Now that I have finished the boss level, if you want to download the game, you can do so by clicking the link in the description below, as I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on the new update. I really did learn a lot from making this game, and I hope to make even better games in the future. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to subscribe, and I will see you later.